So, to our Friday night debate. The question is, should the government decriminalise homosexual acts between consenting adults? Arguing the yes case is Nick Ward, President of the Law Reform Group, and arguing no is Yvonne Chapman, the former National Party MP and Minister. Mr Ward, Mrs Chapman, thanks very much for joining us. Mr Ward, should the government decriminalise homosexual acts between consenting adults?
Well, yes, it certainly should, and without delay. The law that we have in Queensland is actually a hangover from Britain's laws of a couple of hundred years ago. It's quite out of date. Queensland and Australia is a democratic secular society. There is no place for any person's moral judgment to be entrenched in law. And also, especially in the age of AIDS, when it's so important to get to people who are at risk and give them material and education, there cannot be criminal sanctions. There's no justification at all for having a position of inequality between homosexuals and heterosexuals in the eyes of the law.
All right, Mrs Chapman, your opening statement, please.
Well, I believe that it's a step in the wrong direction, Alan, to start decriminalising this, because let's face it, with the problems we have with AIDS in this day and age, the only way to keep it out of society is to make sure that these people aren't doing the wrong thing. And I think that they're definitely doing the wrong thing. The part that worries me immensely is the fact that a lot of these people that are homosexuals have an affair with someone else. They've got a boyfriend as well as a wife, and this consequently is bringing the problem more to the fore as far as the AIDS problem is concerned. And they're the innocent victims, the wife at home.
Mr Ward, what guarantees would there be that changing the law would in any way diminish the spread of AIDS?
Well, there's certainly no justification at all for the assumption that having the laws there will stop homosexual behaviour. I mean, the laws have been there for hundreds of years, and homosexual behaviour and homosexuality has existed and will continue to exist. The important thing to remember with AIDS education is that you need accessibility to people. You need people who are at risk to come forward, get information, present for treatment or testing for the human immunodeficiency virus. And to do that, you cannot make the act of coming forward something which puts a person open to criminal prosecution.
Why should we make it legal? Tell me that. Maybe Mr Ward can tell me why we should make it legal. Let these men run off together and carry on with each other. I mean, it's a definite move against nature.
Mr Chapman, what right has the government in the bedrooms of anyone? What right has the government to tell anyone how they should behave in their bedroom?
Aha, that's all right, until we have to put up with the problem of AIDS. And how many millions from the governments has been spent on AIDS? If these homosexuals hadn't got together in the first place, we might have been able to put that into something more caring. I once made a statement about this many, many moons ago, about whether you'd like to swim in a sewer, and I'm still firmly based that I feel that that's the problem we've got. It's unnatural. It's not the right thing to be doing. It's so abnormal, and it's not a clean way of having sex. It's definitely not.
Mr Chapman, this might be your belief, but the point is, should your belief then be transmitted into law, which affects other people's beliefs?
But it's not my belief. It's not only my belief. It's been proven that it's the wrong way of going about having sex. I mean, it's just not the right. And Mr Ward, you can't tell me that that's normal. A man falling in love with a man. Good heavens above, if we let this go on throughout the whole of society, we're going to end up with some terrible problems.
It was perfectly normal in Greek society. It was perfectly normal for Alexander the Great. It was perfectly normal for Plato. It was perfectly normal for Michelangelo. It was perfectly normal for a lot of people throughout society. Many of the greatest achievers in society have been homosexual. It is perfectly normal for two people to fall in love. What we're talking about here is your distinction on the grounds of gender. What I'm saying is love happens between two people, and often following that is sex. Alfred Kinsey in the Kinsey Report put forward a statement that an unnatural act is an act which cannot be performed. Homosexual acts can be performed. They are not unnatural.
What about pedophiles? That's an act of love too. Surely they were not going to, this is going to be the thin edge of the wedge, and then following that we have bestiality.
Mr Chapman,
do they go on and on? The love for something, purely to have sex with it, even if it's wrong?
Mr Chapman, the Queensland law makes anal intercourse illegal. Is that something the law should say something about?
Because, yes, because of the health problems too. It is, it's wrong, and we should stick by that law.
Mr Ward, what do you say about the government's way of doing things here? They've referred this to the CJC. Is that the way you'd like to see the law changed?
What I want to see is the law changed. The way that it's handled, I don't mind as long as it happens quickly. people are being affected very badly by this law. It's very hard to give someone self-esteem when they're being told that they're a criminal for something that they do in the privacy of their own homes. The situation with violence against homosexuals is extremely bad in Queensland, as in many other places around the world. We need to be able to tackle that on an open basis. We need these laws changed, and we need them changed quickly. Now, as far as the way the government's handling it, I want to see it changed, and a lot of other people in Queensland, the majority surveys have shown, want to see the laws changed. Whether it's done by the CJC or whether it's done by an Act of Parliament, I don't mind, as long as it's done and quickly.
Mr Chapman, would you care to sum up your argument, please?
Well, as far as the CJC is concerned, I think it's the Labor government in this state just passing the buck. They're saying, oh, well, you know, it's in our policy and we don't really want to make the decision. Let's put it over to the CJC and see what they come up with. And I really do feel it's the Labor government saying that, because if you're that much in favour of homosexuality, you must be that way inclined yourself.
Mr Ward, you had the first word, you should have the last.
Well, there's very little to say to a pufter-bashing mentality, which is precisely what Mrs Chapman is coming up with. I think it's extremely damaging. It's extremely damaging.
You said that.
It's extremely damaging to have these attitudes and this bigotry being cast upon homosexuals. These laws are completely outdated. It's time they were changed. There needs to be a realisation in Queensland that any particular person's, including Mrs Chapman's, moral attitude should not be entrenched in the law. We need to get up to date with the rest of the world, and hopefully we can do that in the next few months.
There, I'm afraid time has beaten us, but thank you both very much for coming in today.
Thank you, Alan.
Here's how to cast your telephone vote on tonight's debate. The question is, should the government decriminalise homosexual acts between consenting adults? If you want to vote yes, dial 11628, and if you want to vote no, dial 11626. It's an automatic service, and your vote will be recorded after you hear the ringing tone stop. The phones will stay open until 10 o'clock, and if you're calling from outside Brisbane, dial 07 first. We'll bring you the results of the poll, the final results, on Monday night.